Welcome to my second episode, which we're going to be looking at a Warhammer book. So the book this week is going to be, after voted by you, whether it's subscribers, I don't know who actually votes on this. So Tribes and Tribulations is the book that is going to be picked for this week, which actually has pleased me. As much as I do like Archives of the Empire, I've had that book quite a while now, the first one, but I think they are quite important books to go through at some stage, so I will hit them because I think they're handy to have and handy to very good guides. And when we go through this book, you'll see parts with the archives you're going to need if you were going to play or do a lot with ogres, so to speak. So what we'll do, I'll just go and share the screen. Let's have a look at what we're doing, and it should hopefully look a little bit better this week, because I think hopefully that then should cover and check. Yeah, cool. So I'm just checking it on my iPad here, because I didn't realize when you do multiple pages I get in the way of the right hand page. So what I thought I'd do this week is make sure that doesn't happen, and we'll go one page at a time. So you see, right, so let's get into this. So this book is by Cubicle 7. I didn't cover this last week, so I've got to make sure I cover it. It is available directly on their website for $26.99, so that is in pounds. Dollars, I'm guessing probably about $30, somewhere around there. If you want just the PDF copy, which is what I've got here and what I'm going through, it's £16, available from DriveThruRPG. If you are going to purchase it, then please consider using my affiliate link that I'll put in the video below, because it just will obviously help the channel grow. If at any time you've got any questions, just drop it in, let me know. Feel free to jump in with any questions that you've got. But as you can see from this book, so this is a guide to the brutal warlords. Oh, why has that done that? Why is that in the way? How do I get rid of that? Maybe this isn't going to work as well as I thought it would. That should. There we go. So a guide to the brutal warlords, warbands, and monsters. It's not quite that. It's predominantly greenskins. So you've got ogres, goblins, snotlings, hobgoblins. It does also cover trolls. So it's a very in-depth guide. It only comes in 112 pages, which is why it's quite cheap. It is a thinner book if you do get it on your shelf. So you'd be surprised just how thin and small the book is, but I do think it packs a lot in. Is it an essential book? I think so, yes, if you plan to run lots of ogres, goblins, trolls, those sort of campaigns, because the main rule book doesn't really cover a lot of ogres and trolls. There's little bits in there. Some of the adventures have them, but this is a really good book if you're going to be having these as enemies. The one downside of the book is it doesn't come with a campaign. There's no adventure in here as such, as in like an ongoing sort of adventure campaign. However, there's a ton of hooks and sort of encounters and things like that. So if you want to sort of start a campaign or build a campaign off it, it's going to need a little bit of work to involve the different war bands, but I think it's probably got you covered. Say the only downside is there isn't like a 10-20 page sort of campaign to play in here that some of the Warhammer books have, but I'm glad I got it. I think it's pretty essential from a lore point of view, and creating, see, orcs, goblins, trolls, those sort of NPCs and unique NPCs, which we'll see at the back, and the magic, their specific magic that you can cast. It will make your bad guys considerably harder, tougher, and more importantly, more interesting for your players. As a player, should you buy this book? Doesn't matter if you buy this book as a player. As GM, I think it's quite essential. From a player point of view, I still think it's always good. The more information you get, the more informed you are. You only know what you know, so to speak. So writing and design credits. So we've got Dave Allen, Naomi Hunter, Robin Lowe, Padre Murphy, Clive Oldfield, Samuel Poots, and Simon Willman, and then the rest of the art team here. as you'd expect for a 4th edition Warhammer book, the art throughout is absolutely fantastic. It is a massive draw for me for the game. Cubicle 7 is really wonderful to me. Well, I think for a lot of people when it comes to the contents and the index of the book. So you'll see here, clearly chaptered, clear page numbers. So it only comes out to 108 pages. So it's 112 in all with front and back cover. So it's not a lot of content on the page, but there's a lot within the page, so to speak. So we've got 10 chapters to get through. So they are numbered behind the words. You can click through on the PDF, but one thing this does well is, so if you want to get to the Black Mountain Boys, you'll see that's number 4 behind here. You've got to pay attention to it. I didn't notice it for my first couple of books, but you can just scroll and it will just give you the page number in the top right hand corner and corresponding left hand top corner, so you can actually get to the chapters an awful lot quicker. So let's get back to the start and see what's included. So as you'd imagine, like any book, you've got the basic introduction to orcs, goblins, and related species, their territories and culture. We're then going to look at some specific tribes to encounter with your players. So Cluster-Eye tribe, which is, it's in the Drakwold, which is a forest-based tribe. You've got the Broken Nose tribe, which is, so they live in the sort of undergrounds and they use siege weapons. So this is quite interesting. You've got the Mountain Black Boys, which I like these. They are sort of a bandit sort of extortion tribe that charge people to go through their territory. We've then got the Stone Snakes, which are the tribe that are, hold on, let's get this the right way round. We'll come on to that, but they've fought a load of, they're the underground tribe, I think. You do all your prep and then it starts going out the window once the camera goes on. The Wolf Boys, as you'd imagine, these are fighting on the back of wolves and wargs type things. And then you've got Magoth's Pay Swords, which I think are some of the most interesting ones. This is a brutal tribe of mercenary orcs that just go around the land, sell swords, selling. And I love the idea of mercenary orcs just turning up in the middle of a battle. Then got a load of information on trolls and creating different types of trolls, the WAC magic, and then finally orcs and goblins nemesis. So these are specific hardcore bad NPCs and some rules of creating specific campaign nemesises. So as you can see, there's an awful lot rammed into the 112 pages within the book. Starting off with the introduction. As I need a drink, sorry. It's quite good the way this is sort of laid out, because it goes through how orcs and goblins and things, they don't really have a history that they're aware of, but it does include, so you've got orcs include goblins, black orcs, noblars, hobgoblins, snotlings. I love snotlings. I think that's from my time of playing Blood Bowl. They're not great, but they are incredibly fun to have on the pitch. Okay, so two other species, orcs and goblins, are the scourge. So yeah, the whole of the Warhammer world sees these as technically as the enemy that's out there, obviously along the side of chaos. They tend to live in tribes. And then as tribes get larger, so tribes are led by war bosses. And then as they get larger and become more successful, more people will join the tribe, and then they will end up into a war or a war, a massive war band led by a warlord. Then as if they start to lose and they disperse slightly, they will go back to the older leaders. There is like this fighting hierarchy that comes in, as you'd imagine, with a sort of war-based orc and goblin type people. The history bit I did skip on. So orcs and goblins do not keep historical records, as you can imagine, from a species of people that don't tend to read and write, and have in this game a lot of sort of historical culture, because they are very sort of war driven. They don't really know how far back they go. According to the elves and the Slan, they've existed for over 10,000, well, 10,000 IC, so that's 14,000 years. Sorry, 12,000 years, I should say. Cultures and belief. As you can imagine, excuse me a second. Can't seem to lose this cold I've had now for about 9 weeks, it feels. As you can imagine, they don't have a huge culture or belief structure. They are very much based on war, agriculture, that sort of hierarchy. But they do understand carpentry, metalworking, leatherworking, different types of engineering, though it is crude, but it's effective for things like more fortification, armor, weaponry. So they do love creating armor, weaponry, anything that helps them fight and go to war. Chaos. Oddly, and no one really knows why, orcs and goblins aren't that susceptible, get my words out, to the chaos corruption in this world. And if they are, they're not put to death, because if it helps them fight and become more powerful, they're actually revered and respected in combat and sort of thrown to the forefront. So it's quite nice that, you know, if you think from the human point of view in Warhammer, anyone that gets a corruption, the witch hunters are just going to kill them. Orcs that are deemed to be the uncultured bad guys, they will accept people that are slowly mutating and allow them to coexist without just murdering them outright. Makes you wonder who's the bad guys, I suppose. Orcs and goblin animosity. So it's not it's kind of an animosity and not a hatred. But this is all about the cultural hierarchy that they have. So they will tend to, in times of boredom, outside war, possibly fight, you know, fisticuff, rude insults, etc., with each other between orcs and goblins. Leaders can make certain roles to try and stop it. It is a little bit harder if there's a hobgoblin in the group, because no one really likes the hobgoblins. So that it's got mechanics in here to try and stop the fighting if a war, or you know, you want to try and stop them earlier. From a territorial point of view, they tend to be relatively nomadic because they're just more moved on. They're, you know, it's not like humans that have the settlement and full agriculture and, you know, farming and industry that goes with that, you know, and the humans and the dwarfs that are settled. Some of the orcs and goblins have taken over dwarf settlements, so there are more settled orcs and goblins, which is covered by the map over here, which you probably can't really follow this too well. I don't know. But there's a key down in the bottom left here that's got things like, you know, the orc tribes, savage orc tribes, goblin tribes, etc. So it gives you an idea of where they are. It does also cover dwarf holds and ruined dwarf holds, and then just some miscellaneous locations. I can't read this either, so I don't know how you would read this in the book, because my screen's quite large, and I suppose I am old and blind, but you can sort of see the key. And if you're doing this off a book, I think it's one of the biggest downsides, I would say, of Warhammer full stop is, well, especially 4th edition, is they try to cram too much into the maps. And then they use, it's like the color here that you can't even see the words properly. I don't like it, but you know, they're trying to get as much information out as possible. Maybe do it as separate PDFs, or, you know, actually, because Free League do this. They regularly put a map in within the books that you can buy. And then, don't get me wrong, I'm not a massive fan of having big maps, but they are quite handy if you're playing live. But a lot of us now playing over the internet, I think COVID changed that, or, you know, people getting older, moving away. So maybe the map isn't the greatest of idea. I don't know. So we'll then go through, discuss goblins, different types of goblins, orcs, black orcs, hobgoblins, snotlings, ogres, and trolls, and then templates to make them. So let's go back and have a quick look at the goblins. So common goblins are known. So most goblins are known as common goblins. They work with leather and metal, and the warband typically consists of troops armed with spears supported by contingents of archers. And they are subdivided into other species, technically. So we got the Noblars, which are known as the hill goblins. They're a breed of goblins common to the land east of the Darklands. They're smaller and thinner than common goblins, and even less inclined to craftsmanship, preferring to scavenge and barter for equipment and weaponry rather than make it themselves. Then got forest goblins, which I think you can work out where they live. So that's a bit of a rhetorical thing. But they do this amazing thing. They use giant spiders as mounts. And who isn't terrified by the thought of a warband of goblins chasing down the player characters on giant spiders? Night goblins as you can imagine, they inhabit the tunnels and caves of the vast mountain ranges throughout the land. So if you want to create a NPC, it's very simple the way that it's done this. So you've got the basic stats here for the goblin with their traits, and then whether you're going Noblar, basic forest goblin, or basic night goblin. So this will just give you your initial, technically, if you Dungeons and Dragons, thinking level 1 bad guy, so to speak. So it's very, very simple, basic goblins here for them to play. Orcs. Orcs are related to goblins, but are less common, particularly in the old world, where humans have campaigned to eradicate them. Unlike goblins, which can be found in the depths of the forest of the empires, orcs cling on to the mountainous regions where the small, scattered communities. There are more orcs in the Darklands and the Badlands, though they are not found in the same number as goblins. So we've got a savage orc here. So some tribes demonstrate the pronounced frustration with technology innovation, and so they've become more savage by right, because they don't use any of the other skills that, you know, for making stuff. So what you've got here is your basic orc, and then you've got your excuse me, sorry, you've got your savage orc here. And see the slight difference. So stats are quite similar across the board. I don't think, did I notice anything different? There's no difference on the stats, but it's the traits where they change. So these savage ones have got frenzy and night vision, ward and weapons. So they're going to use a stone axe, where the basic orcs are going to use a chopper. They've still got night vision, but the die hard and they're infected. We've then got everyone's favorite, if you play Blood Bowl, Black Orcs, which Rob, one of my friends, he was always having Black Orcs, and there's many Black Orcs, and they were horrible. They were so hard to take down with that. I think, was it 4 strength they started with? Just stick them on the line, and they're an absolute nightmare. So Black Orcs hail from the heart of the Darklands, are feared amongst the largest and most antagonistic of all the breeds of orc. They are larger and more heavily built than typical orcs. They are usually bedecked with heavy plate armor and carry brutal choppers or two-handed weapons. So their weapon skill, ballistic skills, jumped up quite a bit. More wounds, more strength, etc. Still, though, with the night vision, and they are going to hit harder. Well, better chance to it because they've got a +9 with weapons. The thing is with Black Orcs is they are, as it says here, they're not commonly encountered. So you're not going to see many of them in the world. You will have some in the war bands. You're not going to want to encounter them, especially if your players are. I probably wouldn't throw them at players, especially if they are starting out adventurers. 1 or 2 Black Orcs probably is going to take the party down, and the players aren't going to thank you for throwing Black Orcs at them. Hobgoblins. Hobgoblins are rare and unwelcome visitors to the old world. They have a reputation for being the vilest and most treacherous of all the goblins and orckin. They are taller than goblins and scrawnier than orcs, with narrow eyes and sneering mouths. Unlike goblins and orcs, hobgoblins grow thick hair, they typically wear long, lank, greasy, or tied up in top notches. So again, their homes are in the mountains and the Darklands. But these are the ones that most people, they tend to have a worse reputation than orcs and goblins. And orcs and goblins tend to dislike hobgoblins more than they dislike each other. So they don't tend to really mix with orcs and goblins. Snotlings. I like snotlings. I like the fact they've included them as well. So they're the smallest of the varied species related to orcs and goblins. They have little in the way of intelligence or personality. Whilst they manifest the spite and belligerence of a large goblinkin, they are more animalistic. Whenever orcs and goblins congregate in number, snotlings may also be found. They tend to inhabit the middle heaps, waste heaps, the waste pit, the darker corners of the orcs caves, scouring from amongst their rubbish piles. They're just ace. Snotlings are ace. They have so they manifest their weaponry in different ways. They don't craft their weapons or armors because no one's going to waste time giving them. So they just tend to use whatever they can, throwing weapons like knives, rocks, javelins if they can get hold of one. The stats are pretty lame, but en masse, they can be quite difficult to take down, especially because they get sort of like swarm traits and stuff if you add that in. So it can be difficult for the players to deal with. and fun because they go, oh look, here comes your little snotlings, and like 1 or 2 may come around, and then you just flood another 6 or 7 round. So yeah, so snotlings are quite good. So I would throw those at your players. What I wouldn't throw at your players are ogres. Not yet. Leave that for a while. So ogres are not related to orcs and goblins. They're not got a green skin, but they are included in here. They are actually related or distantly related to humans and halflings. But orcs and goblins being semi-nomadic tribes and warlike, then ogres sort of migrate to the warness of that. Warness, is that a word? It is now. Ogres are large creatures, the height of 12 feet typically, and they're broadly built. They look like flabby and paunchy, but they are incredibly strong with a huge amount of muscle. So as you can imagine, their strength at 45, toughness 45. These things and 30 wounds, they are incredibly difficult to take down. You can, and I'll cover this when I get to the Archives of the Empire, Volume 2, which is, I think, is a better book than Volume 1, but it makes sense if I'm going to do them in order. But you can actually play as a playable race ogres if you get Archives of the Empire Volume 2. Do not let any of your players play an ogre, because they are so damn tough. It'll make every encounter for them easy, every encounter for the rest of the party quite difficult, especially if you want to challenge the ogre. You'll find you'll challenge the ogre, and you might find some of the party might just die because you've decided that you've got one person that's just so combat orientated and incredibly hard to kill. Unless the other players do that, okay, go on then, send Big Morg or whatever off to go and fight. But ogres are so hard and tough in this game that, say, as a player character, I always like options, and I like the brutality of a player or a group of players playing maybe an orc, because they have got the downside of not being that intelligent. But it's very difficult when role players, so intelligent people, play a non-intelligent player character. They tend to not really play it very well, and it is difficult to play a relatively low intelligent creature, and can be boring if you actually play it properly. Well, it depends how you play it. Maybe one for another day. But anyway, so I like them. They do have shamans. There is a shaman template. So if you want to be an ogre and cast magic and have all the hit points and be really hard and tough, not impossible to kill, then go with an ogre shaman. Or if you want to test your players, throw an ogre and an ogre shaman at your players, and just be prepared that they might need to do new characters for next week, and they might not thank you for it. Or if they do win, it's going to be bloody epic. Speaking of even more epic fights, is the trolls, which is actually back to the greenskins and the theme of the book. So these are hulking creatures with gangly limbs and stooped, misshapen bodies. They may look skinny, even comically disproportionate, but they are tremendously strong with heavy bones, bunched muscles, soon like cables. They also regenerate. So good luck taking this down. So yeah, this book sort of ramps. It's quite, I think it's kind of strange the way they do it. They sort of go orcs, goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, snotlings, ogres, trolls. You've got to put an order in somewhere, I suppose. But yeah, these are even more tougher. They tend to be around sort of caves and mountains and hang around, which is why, they do well. Obviously, if you think from an orc or goblin point of view, it makes sense. If you can befriend a troll, it's going to make your war party that much tougher. And it says here, you can go to page 88 to look at the templates to use for the trolls, which you're going to want to spot this because the section on trolls is right at the back of the book, and it gives you, I think it's eight off one hand. I can't even do 8 now. Can't even remember how many fingers and thumbs I've got. So 8 different templates to add to this to make them even better than where they are on the common troll. So how to use these templates? So as you'll have seen, each of these creatures has got a basic template in the bottom, apart from the goblins that have got 4 different basic templates and the orcs that have got 2. Okay. And then you can come here and then you can make them tougher, harder, or theme them if you want. So the goblins just give you a Night Goblin Chief here, which is automatically complete. But if you wanted an Orc Soldier, these are the stats you add to the Orcs, as well as the skills and talents. If you want them to be a Skirmisher, if you want, you can't have, say, Black Orc, you can have Black Orc Elites. You can't do the Trolls with these. The Trolls just go to the back of the book. So ignore these for Trolls. But all the other species, races can. That's 5th edition coming into my head with species. So whether you want Chiefs, Shaman, here you go. Here's your Orc Shaman. If you want to get even more willpower, intelligence, dexterity, initiative, more toughness, and then it's going to give you a variety of spells as well as additional polearm skills and perception. And then you've got Chief, Warlord, and then Shaman Lord. If you hate your players, you know, have you had a bad day at work? Yes. If your players annoyed you, yes. Right, let's give them an Orc Shaman Lord to fight. Why not? Never take it out on your players, seriously. Leave it outside the room before you sit at the table, because you could do really nasty things to the players. Also give you a nice table here, because Cubicle 7 likes to do all the work for you. So it's going to give you a table of names, titles, indicative weapon flavors, etc. Then, if that isn't hard enough or tough enough for the players, here's a lot of mounts to throw at the players. So you can go then and mount them. So like your giant spiders here, squigs and giant squigs, and Morn Fangs, and giant wolves and war boars. So yeah, it does then tell you which ones, which animals. So for example, hobgoblins may take any giant wolf as a mount, so it can't use the squig. So there are restrictions there. So the next, I think 5 chapters are going to look at so these are specific tribes or war bands that are in Warhammer, and all these will take the same route. So they have a little bit of a background. It will then say the disposition, so the breakdown of the tribe, any sort of uniform that identifies them, whether they have a shield, battle cry if they've got one. 2, I think 2 for nearly everyone. Hooks. So these are adventures. So I said there's no campaign, but there's adventure ideas. So these will just give you an idea of one shots or a campaign to use alongside this, the cluster eye. And then this is a history of someone interacting with them. They're quite interesting because it misses out information, adds it, and it's all from a perspective of someone, which is why it may or may not be accurate. Each of the tribes have got this. And then it'll have the tactics on how they fight, what they do when they're not fighting. This actually has got another one. And then an easy encounter. So not only has this got 3 different one-shots, it's got an easy encounter, a medium encounter, and then a hard encounter, and then a kickoff for a campaign idea in there as well. So as much as there's no set campaign in the book, so bear in mind, this is just for one of the 5 different tribes that are in here. So the Cluster of the Eye tribe is a forest goblin tribe who haunt the Drakwold. Most forest goblin warbands are either wretched vessels of an orc tribe or exist as part of the confederation of tribes among the warband. Okay, what makes these special? This here. So they are fighting on the back of these giant, they call them spiders. I think they're slightly larger than a spider. That's damn sight more tarantula than spider, if you ask me. Which would terrify most people, I'd imagine. So this is the sort of the basic background into the goblins on the spiders. So breakdown of who they are. We then got a little bit of history from someone interacting with them, some encounters, and then the coolest bit, you've then got a background bio of the Vish Venombarb, who is the forest goblin chief. So that's a 1 character in there. We've then got the shaman. So if that isn't hard enough, having the war chief, you can have a shaman to fight alongside him. And then 1 elite that's there, and then a forest skirmisher as well. And if that isn't difficult enough, how would you fancy being shot at by spider venom arrows? That's your first one. And see, there's so much adventure and campaign stuff in this book. So there's 5 different tribes, and this is just your 1. So that's your first one. Right, we've then got the broken nose goblins. So these live in the underworld.
So why are they different? These are the ones that use, I think these are the ones that use all the mechanical weapons, aren't they? Yes. Yeah, so these use siege weapons. So they've developed, they're really good at carpentry, forging and things like that. So what they've done is they've taken over dwarf strongholds over time, and then they've used dwarven technology to go and take further strongholds. And in that, again, so you've got the breakdown. So this is made up, so there's between 160 and 200 goblins that fluctuate at any time. And then you've got the breakdown of how they all are, that there's other hanger-ons, so there's other people that are joining the tribe because they're successful. Yeah, your hooks here, so your two sort of campaign adventure ideas, the background interaction from a traveling man, tactics on how they're going to fight. So they attack armies or settlements. They use their war machines and archers to soften up the target. What they do in their downtime, how they spend it. And then we've got an easy encounter, medium encounter, hard encounter. And then we're into the bios of the Goblin War Leader. So Bogrub Leg Biter. Then we've got Gutbug, the Goblin Chief. And then Ratlicker, the Goblin Soldier. And then Karlgun, the Grumbarden, who is a broken dwarf that happened to follow them. And then his backstory is in here, how he ended up with goblins. Then takes you into the nice little bit of section here about the three different types of siege engines that they have. So like the spear chuckers, doom divers, rock lobbers. So as you can imagine, this is like a catapult. The doom diver is a smaller catapult, and this is a ballista, isn't it? The spear chucker, yeah. And again, how to interact with them, a couple of adventure ideas, all the stats as you can imagine, and then the ammunition that's going to be on there, along with its qualities and flaws that's on. And then we've got a new crew floor, which is a crude. So if you're going to be fighting a weapon, one of the big ballista weapons, and you haven't got a significant amount of crew members, so most of these you might need 4, it'll then, so if you've only got 2 people, you gain imprecise floor, double loading time, etc. So again, as you'd imagine, Cubicle 7 have got you covered. They'll go, here you go, here's a really good weapon, you can take this into combat. Here's your downside, because you can't actually use it because you're in a party of 2 or a party of 1. It's going to take you a long time to go. We then got the Black Mountain Boys, which is a tribe of orcs that live, as you can imagine, in Blackfire Pass, south of Zan Minglo. And they basically first killed humans and dwarf merchants that traveled through, and they've set up their base and encampment there. And anyone that passes through, they are just extorting and either killing and maiming anybody that tries to get through that won't pay. Again, we've got the breakdown of the warband here. So there's 95 orc soldiers, breakdown of other things, the uniform they wear, their battle cry, their shield by design, couple of adventure hooks. Is it old weirds then? History about the tribe, tactics on how they fight. So they're going to fight in small groups of orcs, which is only 5 to 10. And then you've got this other boys, which is going to go 8 to 10. And they're going to stay shooting from cover for about 1 D10 rounds. And then they're going to send in the larger number after that. What they do in the downtime, easy, medium, hard encounters. And then finally onto the Orc Warlord, who is huge. 27 wounds, 70 weapon skill. You're just not going to hit him. Not for a long time. So bring this in quite late on. And then you've got the Orc Chief here, an Orc Soldier, and a Orc Skirmisher. Then we've got the Stone Snakes. I'll have to read this because this was the one I couldn't remember. The Stone Snakes are a band of savage orcs who have rejected orc civilization. Oh, yeah, these are the ones that sort of just live out on their own, aren't they? Explain why the Stone Snake tribe was captured and enslaved by chaos dwarfs in the Darklands. From the perspective of their shaman and chief, however, it was all part of their plan. So they've sort of shunned society and live on the outer regions round by the chaos dwarfs. Again, breakdown, a couple of adventure hooks if you're going to get people here. Little map here of some of their bases. As you'd expect, the story, tactics on how they fight. No downtime on this one. So they don't believe in downtime. They will just keep fighting, there isn't a downtime, is there? There's no at ease for these. And then we've got an easy, medium encounter, and another hook here. And then Hiss Snakeskin, who's the shaman leader, Savage Orc. Took me a while, this picture. I assumed he had no arms. It's just the way it's drawn. Great art, but it's like, where's his arms gone? And then we've got the Savage Orc Skirmisher, and then another Savage Orc Skirmisher. And then we've got, these are very much, I'm going to say, does it lean into goblins from Lord of the Rings riding on the back of wargs? Possibly. So they've even got the Khan name, which kind of implies, you know, Kubla Khan and Shere Khan, not Shere Khan, that was from Jungle Book, but you know what I mean. So out there, and obviously they're going to be riding their wolves in and out of combat, sort of surrounding parties and stuff. Very sort of West, it's got that Mongol sort of attack feel to it, especially with the names. But I also like the idea of the sort of Native American type, you know, surrounding things in, even though it's wolves, etc. Again, breakdown shields. They have got shields actually. The war cry, couple of hooks, the interaction there, tactics. Again, no downtime. They don't believe in having a bit of time off. Why would you if you're a sort of nomadic sort of wolf riding pack? Easy, medium, hard encounters, and then your final hook that's there. And then you've got your Oleg Khan, leader, soldier, hobgoblin elite, hobgoblin skirmisher, and then finally my favorite ones, just because I'd say I just love the idea of this one, which is Matt Hogg's Pay Swords, which is a tribe of mercenary orcs that just goes around the whole of the Warhammer land, just fighting anything for money. That's it. So they are kind of honourable-ish, you know, but if you pay them the right money, they'll just go and kill whoever you need them to kill. That's it. You know, what isn't this? What's simpler than that? Again, breakdown of them, how many there are, the uniforms. So they have little that will pass for uniforms. Ogres and the template. This, again, another encouragement, a bit of bold in here. Archives of the Empire 2. Go and buy one of our other books. Which, I say, if you're going to do much on ogres, sadly, you're going to have to get hold of that book. I don't like it when books do this. They kind of go, here's a little bit of information, but you need to go and get that as well. It's just a kind of, I get it. They're a business, but, you know, try and cover stuff off so at least it's achievable in there. You know, it works well for an NPC, but if you want a little bit of the lore and more about them, yeah, you don't really need this book. But I think it's probably because I've read the other book that you realize that it just will add a little bit more to it. Tactics ease, and then 3 encounters, and then another hook with them. And then we've got Matt Ogg here, the Ogre Bruiser, only 55 weapon skill, but 46 wounds. He's going to be around forever. He's never going to die. Then he's got an Ogre Butcher that hangs around with him, an Ogre Hunter, Ogre Iron Gut. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, how about some Ogre Magic? So sometimes the shamanic rituals, also known as, shamanic rituals, gastronomy, Thormagagi, I think that is, gut magic. So again, it's covered in Archives of the Empire 2, but it does give you a little bit more. And when they're casting the spells, if you roll a 10, natural 10 on the D10, you can heal themselves automatically, some wounds back. However, if you do miscast, you don't use the miscast tables from the main rule book or Winds of Magic. If you've got it, it has got its own miscast table here for gut magic, which does go all the way up to 120, because if you do, what it doesn't have the minor and major miscast tables. It just has one. Where, so if you do a major miscast, it says here that you just add +20 to the roll. Hence the reason on a D100, you can go to 120. So, and get the Thermagic Catastrophe, which, yeah, they're dead. and other people are going to die in an explosion. So you just explode, which is spasms and squeals and goes horribly awry before bursting apart with an explosion of stinking offal. So there. We're then into the troll section. So it talks about how trolls, because I think a lot of games have trolls as kind of solitary creatures, not so much in Warhammer. So we've got different types of trolls. We've got the common troll, but it's not. So there are no common trolls. There are stone trolls that live underground, river trolls that live in bogs and untamed riverbanks, chaos trolls that are also known as dark trolls that live in, they adapt to ruinous powers. They tend to live underground. And then we've got the bile trolls, according to the stories of warbands, once into the northern waste, into their pit against the followers of the Dark Lords. So these tend to be slightly tougher trolls, I think, for bile trolls. Again, the leader here. So we've got, when you want to play a troll, you've got your 4 different types that you go from. So you take your basic troll back on, I think it was on page 15, somewhere around there. Yeah. And then you got to scroll all the way back to the book. What would really happen if they'd actually just repeated that little table here? It's not a big thing, just to put it, you know, they could have just bunched this up, and then bunched these up, and then put another little table here, just a reminder. But it's in the book. It just bugs me scrolling backwards and forwards across books. So whether you want to go stone, river, chaos, and then bile. So see, the bile seem to have a little bit more power here. And then the type of troll, where it's an old troll, hungry troll, a hulking troll, or the river troll, hag. And then it'll just separate that out from there. Again, it'll give you the tactics for how they fight, how they pack hunting, simple traps and bait. A couple of encounters, an easy, medium, and hard encounter, you should imagine. And then as the whole of the book's gone, so you've got yet another NPC to fight. And if that isn't enough, you've got a second one. Then we've got magic, which is orc and goblin magic. So if you've watched my video last week, which I did on Winds of Magic, which is how the 8 sort of winds of how the magic works for the humans and the elves in Warhammer, then this basically says that the colleges of magic don't actually recognize it as it's not done by the winds. It's actually done by shamans gaining the power off the orcs and goblins that are around in that area. So it's that sort of more tribalistic magic than just sort of magic that the humans and the elves sort of like pluck out. They can feel it in the air. So the larger the warband, the potential for the more damage and the easier the spells become to cast. Gives you then the examples of whether orcs, savage orcs, goblins, night goblins, forest goblins, and hobgoblins, and the type of creatures that become, you know, whether they're shaman, etc. And we've then got obviously the miscast table, so a separate miscast table. I like the fact they've covered a different miscast table again, because shamanistic magic is again different to the winds of magic. So you'd expect the miscast table to be different, which it is, which is good. We've then got some magic items. I say some. What's that? 6. So it's not a lot. Some's better than nothing, but you see this in a lot of books now. Wizards of the Coast do this as well. They go, here's some magic items. You know, is that it? You know, give me a lot more magic items, please. That would be a bit more interesting. But again, some's better than nothing. But also, if you're going to have magic items, throw some cursed items in. I love cursed items. We've then got some spells of the Wag to cast, like Itchy Nuisance, the Great Green Spite. Gork will fix it. Can't say that in this country anymore. Well, Gork will fix it is fine. Don't change the third word to a TV show from the 70s. We don't talk about it. Mork wants you. Night Stroud. Okay, what's this sneaky stabbing then? The shaman enchants his allies with a mischievous power to find their enemy's weak spot. Blows struck by affected targets possess the impale and penetrating qualities. Okay, so just ignore their armor. Then we've got Shaman Shrooms. Shaman Shrooms are mushrooms that have sprouted from the bodies of the night goblin shamans. The process is self-sustaining, and the more shaman shrooms the night goblin shaman consumes, the more likely he's become invested with the fungi. So that influences the result on the warg, goes onto the miscast table. So so despite the risks for the shrooms, the shaman may eat a piece of shroom as an action. For the next 2d10 rounds, they make challenging tests and casting tests as if there was 2d10 additional goblins within the willpower bonus. That's quite cool. I love that is one of the things that I really do love about the Warhammer world as well, is the corruption, the re-rolling. You can, if you fail a roll, you can just actually ask the games master to re-roll it, and you take some sort of corruption rolls. And do you want more power now for limitations? And this is, again, you can do it with the shamans for the goblins. And then we've got the big spells here. So hard as nails. The shaman imbues the target within range with war energy, causing them to grow increasingly belligerent and resilient. The target becomes subject to hatred of all its enemies, may ignore negative effects of conditions and disease they suffer, and gains 2 SLs for any toughness-based rolls. Wow. Fists. Oh, let's have a look at Fist of Gort. These are quite cheap as well. That's only a CN3. If you don't know how the magic works, it's covered in my Winds of Magic video, but it's like anything. You're doing spell rolls to get a certain amount of target numbers to roll under. The shaman's gnarled fists grow large and become as hard as iron. The shaman must drop any item he holds in his hands and may only attack with his fists, but it counts as having melee brawl 55 and weapons fist +9. Wow, that's quite cool. So we're now into the last chapter, which is Orcs and Goblins Nemesises. So this is going to sort of help you create unique bad guys for your campaign and give you sort of hints and tips on what to do. And then it will give you some traits for them, whether they're cunning, brutal, ambition, what their sort of long-term aims and goals are as well. And then finally, it's just got, so obviously you take, to run this, you use the previous stats from back further in this book here and create them around the certain ways of what you need to do. Where is it here? And different soldiers, etc. And then it's going to give them a little bit more personality, make it a little bit more interesting than just stats on a page. But as you can see, there's a lot of lore in here. There's lots of tribes that you can put towards the player characters. And then you've got Skarsnik, which is a notorious chieftain captain of the Moonhook tribe, and his bloated cave squig that he rides on the back of. And then we've got Gorfang Rockgut, which is a massive, aggressive, monstrous Red Fang tribe of the leader of the Orcs. And then finally, we've got, I think this is the final thing, which is Sog Cog, which is the hulking chaos troll with 76 wounds. Now, I'd love to know if anybody has ever managed to take this thing down from any party. And if you did, how long were you playing to try and take that down? Yeah, that's it. And then you're into the index. So that's it. That's the book. What do I think? Well, I said right from the outset, I think this book is pretty essential if you plan to run orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, snotlings, run snotlings. It's just a really interesting book to me, and I'm glad I got it. I'd say from a games master point of view, I think every games master should have it. It's going to add an awful lot to your campaigns, to the lore, to the ideas of, even down to, there's so many one shots in there. When I was going through the characters, I think there's probably 20, 25, maybe more individual characters that you can put at your NPCs. You've got 6 different, tribes where you can have sort of ongoing campaigns and interactions and encounters with. It's cheap. It's cheap because it's small. So it's, these are just over 112 pages, But I think you could see from there, it's 112 pages of an awful lot of green. Should we say awful lot of green goodness? And I think we'll leave it there. I think you should buy this. As a games master, I think you should buy it, or definitely read it if you're a player. As I said from outset, if you are interested in buy it, please do, and you just want the PDF, please do use my affiliate link. It does help, you know, it makes a little bit of money for me, helps the channel grow, helps me buy more things like the books behind and PDFs to do more reviews and make more videos on. If you've sat through this video live, thank you for being here. I'll come back, I'll do another book next week. My name's Adrian from Dungeon Dyslexia. Thank you for watching.